Over 70,000 plant species have been used in traditional medicine, yet modern science has studied fewer than 15% of them. In rainforests disappearing at the rate of 40 football fields every minute, plants with the potential to cure diseases are vanishing before they can be cataloged. Tonight, in this sleep documentary, we journey into the sleepy science of ethnobotany, the study of forest herbs and their traditional healing properties, and let these soothing facts help you fall asleep fast. Tonight, we explore the science of ethnobotany in this documentary for sleep. From the willow bark that gave us aspirin to the foxglove that steadies failing hearts, the history of medicine is written in leaves and roots. This is science for sleep, where botanical wisdom becomes a lullaby and ancient knowledge guides you toward deep sleep. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. Over the next 2 hours, over 100 gentle facts about ethnobotany and forest medicine will guide you through the green world of healing plants. There is nothing to memorize, nothing to remember. Just listen and let your mind drift into deep sleep. Have you ever held chamomile tea and wondered who first discovered its calming properties? You are not alone. If this documentary for sleep brings you comfort, consider subscribing and perhaps share these facts to fall asleep to with someone who needs rest. Now take a slow breath and let your shoulders ease. Feel your body sinking into stillness, as though resting on soft moss beneath an ancient canopy. The forest will wait patiently for you to fall asleep in its quiet embrace. Let us begin. Ethnobotany is the study of how different cultures have used plants for medicine, food, and ritual throughout human history. The word itself marries two ancient roots, ethnos from the Greek meaning people, and botany, the science of plants, forming a discipline at the crossroads of anthropology, biology, and medicine. Ethnobotanists travel to remote villages, record the fading memories of elderly healers, and catalog the plants that have sustained communities for thousands of years. Every poultice, every tea, every sacred smoke ceremony represents generations of careful observation passed quietly from parent to child. In modern laboratories, these traditional remedies become starting points for new drug discoveries. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect is how often separate cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, arrived at the same plant solutions for the same human ailments. In ethnobotany, we find medicine and memory intertwined. The oldest evidence of humans using medicinal plants dates back over 60,000 years, found in a Neanderthal burial site. In Shanidar Cave, nestled in the mountains of what is now northern Iraq, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a Neanderthal man carefully arranged in death, surrounded by pollen from yarrow, groundsel, and other plants still used medicinally today. The soil samples suggested that even our evolutionary cousins had developed an understanding of healing plants. Whether the plants were grave offerings or genuine medicine remains debated, but the presence of so many species with known therapeutic compounds stretches beyond coincidence. Yarrow staunches bleeding, groundsel soothes inflamed skin, and ephedra clears congested airways. The discovery invites us to imagine a world where knowledge of healing plants is older than modern humanity itself. Healing is among the most ancient of human impulses. Every indigenous culture on Earth has developed its own pharmacopoeia of healing plants, often with remarkable overlap in their uses. From the frozen tundra of Siberia to the humid jungles of Papua New Guinea, from high deserts to Pacific island chains, every group of people who has walked this planet has figured out which plants ease pain, reduce fever, and bring rest to troubled minds. The overlap is astonishing. Cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years independently discovered that willow bark soothes headaches, that mint calms the stomach, and that certain mushrooms open doorways in the mind. This convergence suggests that humans everywhere share the same fundamental needs and that plants have evolved similar chemical solutions. The knowledge was never written in ancient manuscripts, but inscribed in songs, prayers, and the careful teachings of mothers to daughters. The green world has always been speaking, and our ancestors listened. The Amazon rainforest alone contains an estimated 80,000 plant species, many of which have never been studied by Western science. The canopy stretches unbroken for hundreds of miles, a green sea so dense that in some places the forest floor receives less than 1% of the sunlight falling upon the leaves above, and within this verdant darkness lives a diversity of plant life that defies comprehension. Scientists estimate that roughly half of all plant species on Earth have yet to be formally described, and the Amazon holds a disproportionate share of these unknowns. Indigenous healers often recognize hundreds of species by bark texture alone, knowing which sap soothes burns, which root eases childbirth, and which leaf must never be touched. Yet every year, an area roughly the size of Belgium is cleared, and with each acre vanish plants that might have offered cures for diseases we have not yet learned to treat. In the Amazon, the unknown vastly outweighs the known. Traditional healers often spend decades learning their craft, memorizing hundreds of remedies passed down through oral tradition. In many cultures, the path to becoming a healer begins in childhood, with an apprentice following an elder into the forest, learning first to observe, then to gather, then to prepare, and finally to administer. The training might last 10, 20, even 30 years, a curriculum with no textbooks, only the slow accumulation of lived experience and memorized lore. Each plant must be known in all its seasons, in different soils, at various stages of growth, because the potency of its compounds can shift with the angle of the sun or the moisture in the air. The healer learns not only the what but the when and the how, the songs that accompany treatments, the prayers that honor the plant. When a healer dies without passing on their knowledge, volumes of understanding vanish. The longest apprenticeship may be the one no diploma can replace. The World Health Organization estimates that 80% of the global population still relies on traditional plant-based medicine. For billions of people, the local herbalist is the first and often only source of health care, not because they distrust modern medicine, but because pharmacies are too distant, too expensive, or absent from their villages. In rural Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America, knowledge of which plant cures which ailment remains essential to daily survival. Even in industrialized nations, herbal supplements fill entire aisles in supermarkets, evidence that plant-based healing transcends geography and wealth. The World Health Organization has recognized that integrating traditional medicine into healthcare systems could bridge the gap between what modern medicine promises and what it delivers. Not every folk remedy works, which is precisely why scientific study of these traditions matters. Plant medicine is a living practice sustaining much of humanity. And from this ancient foundation of botanical wisdom, we turn now to the science hidden within the plants themselves. Plants produce secondary metabolites, chemical compounds that serve no direct role in growth, but often have powerful medicinal effects. A plant's primary metabolites, sugars, amino acids, and lipids, are essential for life, the building blocks of structure and energy, but secondary metabolites are something else entirely. A vast arsenal of chemical creations that plants use to navigate a world in which they cannot run or hide. These compounds may repel insects, attract pollinators, or protect against ultraviolet radiation, creating an accidental pharmacy from which humans have drawn cures for thousands of years. Over 200,000 different secondary metabolites have been identified so far, each shaped by millions of years of evolutionary pressure. When you crush a mint leaf and smell its fragrance, you are sensing terpenes released as chemical defenses. What evolved to keep other organisms away has become the very thing that draws us near. Many of these healing compounds evolved as plant defense mechanisms against insects, fungi, and grazing animals. A tree cannot flee when a beetle bores into its bark. A shrub cannot swat away the caterpillar munching on its leaves. So instead, plants have developed a chemical ingenuity that rivals the most sophisticated pharmaceutical laboratory on our planet. The bitter alkaloid that makes a deer spit out a mouthful of leaves may also, in carefully measured doses, regulate a failing human heart. The antimicrobial compound that protects a root from soil fungi may become an antibiotic that saves millions of lives. The neurotoxin that paralyses an insect's nervous system may, in minuscule amounts, relax a clenched muscle or ease intractable pain. Evolution has spent hundreds of millions of years testing these compounds, refining their potency, calibrating their effects. Defense and healing share the same molecular roots. Alkaloids are a class of plant chemicals that include some of the most powerful medicines and poisons known to humanity. The name alkaloid comes from their basic, or alkaline, chemical nature, and they share a common characteristic: a nitrogen atom tucked within their molecular structure. But that is where the similarity ends, for alkaloids range from the soothing to the deadly and dangerous. Strychnine, extracted from the seeds of a Southeast Asian tree, causes convulsions so violent that the spine can fracture, while codeine, derived from the opium poppy, gently suppresses coughs and dulls the edges of pain. Atropine, found in deadly nightshade, can both kill and cure depending on the dose, used by Renaissance women to dilate their pupils and by modern surgeons to steady a racing heart. The line between medicine and poison is a question of quantity alone. In alkaloids, life and death share the same molecular architecture. Morphine, caffeine, nicotine, and quinine are all alkaloids, each discovered in the tissues of humble plants. Morphine from the opium poppy manages pain so severe that nothing else can touch it, a molecule that has accompanied humanity through surgeries and battlefields, bringing relief and addiction in equal measure. Caffeine from the coffee bean and tea leaf wakes billions of sleepy minds each morning, so ordinary we forget it is a drug at all. Nicotine from the tobacco plant hooks millions with its seductive stimulation, once used as an insecticide because of its neurotoxicity. Quinine from the cinchona tree bark saved countless lives from malaria, enabling the expansion of colonial empires. 4 plants, 4 alkaloids, 4 different stories, yet bound together by chemistry and by the human capacity to find use in what forests produce. The most ordinary cup of tea carries chemistry millions of years in the making. Terpenes give plants their distinctive scents and also possess anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and anxiolytic properties. When you walk through a pine forest and breathe in that sharp, resinous fragrance, you are inhaling terpenes, volatile compounds that plants release as part of their communication and defense. There are over 50,000 known terpenes, each with its own molecular architecture, and they are responsible for the calming scent of lavender, the citrus zing of lemon peel, and the earthy mustiness of woodland soil. Scientists have discovered that many terpenes cross the blood-brain barrier and interact directly with neurotransmitter systems, which may explain why certain plant scents have been used for millennia to ease anxiety and promote rest. Forest bathing, the Japanese practice of walking slowly among trees, appears to reduce stress hormones in part because of the terpenes we breathe. The forest heals not only through what we swallow, but through what we inhale. Flavonoids color fruits and flowers, while also acting as antioxidants within the human body. The deep purple of a blueberry, the brilliant red of an apple skin, and the vivid yellow of a dandelion petal all owe their hues to flavonoids, a class of compounds that plants produce to attract pollinators and protect themselves from ultraviolet radiation. When we eat colorful fruits and vegetables, these pigments enter our bloodstream and neutralize the unstable molecules called free radicals that can damage our cells. There are over 6,000 different flavonoids found in tea, wine, citrus fruits, and dark chocolate, and they have been linked to reduced inflammation and improved blood circulation in the body. In a very real sense, the colors that evolved to lure bees and birds have become medicines that protect human hearts and brains. Eating the rainbow is a way of borrowing the chemical ingenuity of the green world. And so we begin to see how the forest floor, carpeted with leaves and fallen branches, holds secrets that have shaped human medicine for millennia, gentle science for sleep that spans the ages. Willow bark has been used to relieve pain and fever for at least 3,500 years, eventually leading to the synthesis of aspirin. Ancient Sumerian tablets mention the willow as a remedy for aches and fever, and Egyptian papyri describe brewing willow leaves into a tea for inflammation. The tree grows near water, its long branches trailing into streams, and healers across continents recognized that chewing its bitter bark brought relief from the pains of everyday life. By the 18th century, an English clergyman named Edward Stone formally documented willow bark's fever-reducing properties, and within a century, chemists had isolated salicin and transformed it into acetylsalicylic acid, the compound we call aspirin. This single plant gave rise to one of the most widely used medications in history, taken billions of times each year. The willow still bends gracefully beside rivers, unaware of the revolution its chemistry has wrought. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, prescribed willow bark tea for headaches and labor pains. In the 5th century BCE, on the Greek island of Kos, a physician named Hippocrates began teaching that diseases had natural causes rather than divine punishments, and among his recommendations was the use of willow bark to ease the pains of childbirth and the throb of headaches. His writings describe grinding the bark to a powder, steeping it in water, and administering the bitter infusion to patients who had found no relief from other remedies. Across the ancient world, this same prescription appeared again and again, from Rome to indigenous America, each culture arriving independently at the same botanical solution. Hippocrates could not have known the chemical reason behind the remedy, yet his observations were precise enough that modern medicine has vindicated them. Sometimes the oldest cures are also the truest. The active compound in willow bark, salicin, is converted by the body into salicylic acid, the precursor to modern aspirin. Inside the willow's bark lies a compound called salicin, a bitter glycoside that the tree produces to protect itself against insects and infections, and when humans ingest it, our livers transform it into salicylic acid, a molecule that reduces inflammation and blocks pain signals. In 1897, a chemist named Felix Hoffmann added an acetyl group to salicylic acid, creating a compound that was gentler on the stomach while retaining its healing power. That compound, acetylsalicylic acid, became aspirin, one of the first mass-produced synthetic drugs and still one of the most versatile medicines ever created. From headaches to heart attacks, from fevers to the prevention of stroke, aspirin's applications continue to expand. The willow's quiet chemistry, refined in a laboratory, became a gift to humanity. And as you rest with these thoughts of ancient remedies and forest medicine, let them settle softly into your mind. There is no need to hold onto any single fact. Let them pass through you like the scent of herbs on a quiet breeze. In this sleepy science journey, knowledge is not a burden but a comfort. Foxglove, with its beautiful bell-shaped flowers, contains digitalis, a compound that can slow and strengthen a failing heart. In cottage gardens throughout Britain and Europe, the foxglove rises on tall stalks, its tubular purple flowers dangling like bells that might ring in a fairy tale. Yet within those lovely blooms lies a poison powerful enough to stop a human heart, or in the right dose, to make it beat more steadily. The compounds known as digitalis increase the force of cardiac contractions while slowing the heart rate, a combination that can transform a weak, fluttering heart into one that pumps blood effectively again. Herbalists had used foxglove for centuries with mixed results until modern pharmacology learned to extract and measure the active compounds precisely. Today, derivatives of digitalis remain essential cardiac medications prescribed to millions of patients. Beauty and danger share the same petals. An English country doctor named William Withering learned of foxglove's heart-healing properties from a local herbalist in 1785. The story goes that William Withering, a physician in rural Shropshire, heard rumors of an old woman who could cure dropsy, the swelling caused by heart failure, with a secret remedy made of various herbs. He sought her out, obtained her recipe, and discovered that among the 20 or so ingredients, foxglove was the one that mattered. Over the following decade, Withering carefully documented 163 cases, experimenting with doses until he understood how to use the plant safely. His book, An Account of the Foxglove, published in 1785, is considered one of the first modern drug studies. Withering gave credit to the herbalist, acknowledging that his discovery came from the accumulated wisdom of country people who had quietly been saving lives. Digitalis remains one of the most important cardiac medications, still derived from the same purple flowers that grow wild in European hedgerows. More than 2 centuries after William Withering's careful observations, digitalis compounds continue to be prescribed to patients whose hearts cannot pump blood efficiently. Modern pharmaceutical factories cultivate acres of foxglove, harvesting the leaves and extracting the active glycosides with industrial precision, yet the fundamental chemistry remains unchanged from what nature devised millions of years ago. Digoxin, the most commonly used form, is given to patients with heart failure, and despite the development of many newer cardiac drugs, it has not been replaced because nothing else works quite the same way. In a world of synthetic molecules designed by computers, this ancient plant compound remains indispensable. The hedgerows of Europe still bloom with purple bells, quietly producing medicine that keeps human hearts beating. And from the woodlands of Europe, we travel now to the tropical forests where some of the most remarkable healing plants await, carrying their gifts of late science into the night. The rosy periwinkle of Madagascar produces vincristine and vinblastine, compounds that have revolutionized the treatment of childhood leukemia. On the island of Madagascar, separated from the African mainland for millions of years, a small flower with pink petals grows in sandy soils and forest clearings, unremarkable to the casual observer, but carrying within its tissues compounds that would change cancer medicine. Indigenous healers had used the rosy periwinkle for diabetes and as a wound wash, which prompted researchers in the 1950s to investigate its chemistry, and what they found astonished them: alkaloids that could halt the division of cancer cells. Vincristine attacks leukemia cells with remarkable precision, and its discovery transformed a diagnosis that once meant almost certain death into one where most children now survive. A single plant from a single island has saved hundreds of thousands of young lives. Evolution's experiments became humanity's hope. Before the discovery of vincristine, childhood leukemia had a survival rate of less than 10%. Now, that figure exceeds 90%. In the 1950s, a diagnosis of acute lymphoblastic leukemia in a child was essentially a death sentence, with fewer than 1 in 10 patients surviving more than 5 years, despite the best efforts of doctors who could offer little more than blood transfusions. The introduction of vincristine and vinblastine, combined with other drugs in carefully designed regimens, changed everything. These plant-derived compounds interrupt the mitotic spindle, the structure cells use to divide, and because cancer cells divide more rapidly than healthy cells, they are disproportionately affected. Today, more than 90% of children diagnosed with this once fatal disease will grow up to lead normal lives. Behind this triumph stands a flower that evolved its chemistry perhaps to deter caterpillars. Life finds uses for life in unexpected places. The cinchona tree of South America produces quinine, the first effective treatment for malaria and a drug that changed colonial history. In the cloud forests of the Andes, where mist clings to steep slopes and the air is thin and cool, grows a tree whose bark would alter the fate of empires. Malaria had been a death sentence for Europeans venturing into tropical regions, killing soldiers and settlers by the thousands, until quinine extracted from cinchona bark offered a way to survive where the fever reigned. With this bitter medicine in hand, colonial powers could penetrate jungles and marshlands that had previously been graveyards for outsiders. The tree became so valuable that its seeds were smuggled, its plantations guarded, and wars were fought over access to its bark. Even today, quinine derivatives remain part of anti-malarial treatment, particularly in regions where resistance to newer drugs has emerged. One tree changed the map of the world. Quechua healers of Peru had used cinchona bark for fevers long before European missionaries learned its secret. High in the mountains of Peru, indigenous healers had observed that chewing or brewing the bark of certain trees could break a fever and restore strength to the weakened body. This knowledge was passed down through generations, part of a rich tradition of plant medicine that the Quechua people had developed over thousands of years of careful observation. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the 17th century, suffering from the fevers that plagued lowland regions, local healers shared their remedy. The bark was sent to Europe, where it became known as Jesuit's bark or Peruvian bark, and eventually the active compound was isolated and named quinine. The missionaries received credit, but the true discoverers were the indigenous people who had watched, learned, and remembered. Their generous gift to the world was rarely acknowledged. The demand for quinine was so great that it sparked one of the first examples of botanical espionage, as seeds were smuggled across continents. By the 19th century, European colonial powers were desperate to secure their own supply of cinchona, rather than depending on South American sources that could be disrupted by war or politics. Britain and the Netherlands sent agents into the Andes to collect seeds and seedlings, often bribing local officials or simply stealing the precious cargo under cover of darkness and through treacherous mountain passes. The Dutch eventually established vast plantations in Java, while the British tried their luck in India and Ceylon, and for decades the race to control quinine supply shaped international relations. This botanical espionage presaged later conflicts over oil and other strategic resources. A tree that had quietly evolved in the mists of the Andes became a pawn in the great power games of distant empires. Pacific yew trees produce Taxol, one of the most effective chemotherapy drugs for breast and ovarian cancer. In the ancient forests of the Pacific Northwest, where towering conifers block the sun and the understory remains cool and damp throughout the year, grows a slow-growing tree that was long considered a nuisance by loggers, too twisted and small to be worth harvesting for timber or construction. Yet within its rough bark lay one of the most powerful anti-cancer compounds ever discovered by medical science. Taxol or paclitaxel works by stabilizing the structures that cells use to divide, effectively freezing cancer cells in the act of replication and triggering their death. When clinical trials in the late 20th century showed remarkable results against breast and ovarian tumors, demand for Pacific yew bark exploded dramatically. The tree that had been overlooked for centuries suddenly became precious beyond measure. For every cancer patient treated with Taxol, 3 entire yew trees were once required, prompting urgent research into sustainable synthesis. The cruel mathematics of early Taxol production posed an impossible dilemma, saving lives while destroying the forests that made those cures possible. Each patient's course of treatment required bark from 3 mature Pacific yew trees, and these trees grow slowly, taking decades to reach harvestable size. Conservationists warned that the species could be driven to extinction if demand continued unchecked. The crisis spurred chemists to find alternative sources, and eventually a semi-synthetic method was developed using needles from a related European yew, a renewable resource that could be harvested without killing the trees. Today, Taxol is produced through a combination of plant cell culture and chemical synthesis, and the Pacific yew forests breathe easier. Necessity birthed innovation. And as we continue through this quiet catalog of forest medicines in this sleep documentary, we find that even the most common plants hold extraordinary power. Ginkgo biloba is one of the oldest living tree species on Earth, with a fossil record stretching back 270 million years. Long before dinosaurs walked the Earth, ginkgo trees were already ancient, their distinctive fan-shaped leaves falling in forests that would eventually become coal seams and fossil beds buried deep beneath the ground. They survived the mass extinction that ended the age of dinosaurs, the ice ages that reshaped continents, and the rise and fall of countless other species across the vast sweep of geological time. Today, Ginkgo biloba is the sole survivor of its entire botanical family, a living fossil that still grows in temple gardens and city streets around the world. The species was saved from extinction in part by Buddhist monks who cultivated it for centuries in Chinese monasteries. When you see a ginkgo tree, you are looking at a design that evolution perfected before flowers even existed. Traditional Chinese medicine has used ginkgo leaves for memory enhancement and cognitive support for over 5,000 years. In the ancient texts of Chinese herbalism, ginkgo appears as a remedy for the mind, recommended for sharpening memory, clearing mental fog, and supporting the brain through the challenges of aging. Monks who tended ginkgo groves noticed that the elderly seemed more alert when they drank tea made from the distinctive fan-shaped leaves each day. This observation, refined over millennia, became part of a sophisticated system of medicine that viewed cognitive decline not as inevitable, but as treatable. Modern neuroscience has begun to investigate these claims, and while the evidence remains mixed, some studies suggest that ginkgo extracts may indeed improve blood flow to the brain and offer modest benefits for certain types of memory. Ancient intuition points modern science toward promising directions. Modern research suggests ginkgo may improve blood flow to the brain and possess mild neuroprotective properties. Clinical trials have produced conflicting results, with some showing modest improvements in memory and attention among older adults taking ginkgo supplements daily, while others find no significant benefit over placebo in controlled settings. What does seem clear is that compounds in ginkgo leaves can dilate blood vessels and reduce the stickiness of platelets, potentially improving circulation to the brain and its delicate tissues. Some researchers believe ginkgo may help protect neurons from oxidative damage, the kind of cellular wear and tear that accumulates slowly with age. The tree that survived mass extinctions may offer clues to surviving the quieter extinction of memories that comes with growing old. Even if the benefits are ultimately modest, they remind us that the forest still has secrets to share. Ginseng root has been revered in Asia for millennia as an adaptogen, a substance believed to help the body resist stress. In the mountains of Korea, China, and Siberia, healers have long prized the gnarled roots of ginseng as a tonic for vitality, endurance, and overall well-being. The concept of an adaptogen, a substance that helps the body adapt to stress without causing harm, was formalized by Russian scientists in the 20th century, but reflects ideas that Asian herbalists had understood for thousands of years already. Ginseng is taken to improve energy during times of exhaustion, to support recovery from illness, and to maintain resilience in the face of physical or mental strain. Modern research has identified a family of compounds called ginsenosides that may modulate the stress response, though the mechanisms remain incompletely understood. The root that resembles a human figure seems to care for human bodies. The word ginseng comes from the Chinese rainshen, meaning man root, because the forked root often resembles a human figure. When a ginseng root is carefully dug from the forest floor, gently washed, and laid out to dry in the open air, its shape can be startlingly human-like, with a central body and branching limbs that suggest arms and legs. Ancient Chinese herbalists saw this resemblance as a clear sign that the root was meant to heal the human body, a belief known as the doctrine of signatures that guided much traditional medicine around the world. While modern science dismisses such resemblances as mere coincidence, the intuition that led healers to value ginseng has proven remarkably prescient. The root does contain biologically active compounds, and its effects on energy and stress have been documented in clinical studies. Sometimes the oldest observations, however mystical their reasoning, point toward genuine truths. Wild ginseng is now so rare that a single root can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. In the forests of Appalachia and the mountains of Korea, hunters still search for wild ginseng, though the plants have become vanishingly rare after centuries of overharvesting and habitat loss. A single mature root, twisted by decades of slow growth in the forest shade, can fetch prices that rival precious gems, and the oldest specimens are treated with reverence approaching the sacred. Poachers risk fines and imprisonment to dig roots from protected lands, and legitimate harvesters guard their secret patches with fierce loyalty passed down through generations. The scarcity has driven cultivation efforts, yet connoisseurs insist that wild roots possess subtle qualities that farmed ginseng cannot match. A plant that evolved to grow slowly in quiet forests has become a casualty of its own reputation, hunted nearly to extinction by those who believe in its power. Echinacea was used by Plains Indians to treat wounds, snake bites, and infections long before it became a popular immune supplement. On the prairies of North America, where summer heat bakes the grasslands and winters bring bitter cold, indigenous peoples discovered that the purple coneflower possessed remarkable healing properties that could mean the difference between life and death. They chewed the roots to relieve toothache, applied poultices to wounds, and drank teas to fight infections that might otherwise prove fatal in those days before antibiotics. When European settlers arrived, they learned these remedies from native healers and carried them eastward, and by the late 19th century, echinacea had become one of the most popular medicines in America. The advent of antibiotics pushed it aside for decades, but growing interest in natural remedies has brought it back to prominence. the plant that prairie healers trusted continues to appear in millions of medicine cabinets. Studies on echinacea's effectiveness remain mixed, yet it continues to be one of the best-selling herbal remedies in the Western world. Scientists have conducted dozens of clinical trials examining whether echinacea can prevent or shorten colds, and the results have been frustratingly inconsistent, with no clear consensus emerging from the data. Some studies show modest benefits in symptom severity and duration, while others find no difference from placebo, and the variation may stem from differences in species used, plant parts selected, and preparation methods employed in manufacturing. Despite this uncertainty, consumers continue to reach for echinacea at the first sign of a sniffle, driven by tradition, hope, and a desire for natural solutions. The plant contains compounds that do appear to stimulate immune cells in laboratory settings, even if real-world effects remain elusive. Perhaps the comfort of taking action, of trusting in an ancient remedy, provides its own form of healing. And from the grasslands and prairies, we return to the European forest understory, where quiet herbs have shaped healing for centuries, perfect facts to fall asleep to on a restless night. St. John's wort has been used since ancient Greece to treat melancholy, wounds, and insomnia. In the meadows and woodland edges of Europe, a modest yellow flower has lifted spirits for over 2,000 years, offering comfort to those lost in darkness of mind. The ancient Greeks named it hyperrhicon and recommended it for what they called melancholia, the darkness of mood that could descend without warning or apparent cause. Medieval herbalists believed the plant drove away evil spirits, and they hung bundles of it in doorways to protect households against malevolent forces. The red pigment that bleeds from crushed flowers was seen as a signature from nature, marking it as a remedy for wounds and bleeding. Through centuries of use, through plague and war and social upheaval, this unassuming plant remained in the healer's toolkit, passed from generation to generation. What our ancestors intuited, modern science has begun to explain. Modern clinical trials have found that St. John's wort can be as effective as prescription antidepressants for mild to moderate depression. When researchers subjected St. John's wort to rigorous clinical testing, expecting to debunk another folk remedy with no scientific basis, they found something genuinely surprising that challenged their assumptions. In trial after trial, the herb performed as well as standard antidepressants for mild to moderate depression, with fewer side effects, lower cost, and better patient tolerance. The active compounds appear to work by increasing levels of serotonin and other mood-regulating neurotransmitters, much like synthetic medications designed in laboratories. In Germany and other European countries, doctors regularly prescribe St. John's wort more often than pharmaceutical antidepressants for mild cases. The yellow flower that medieval peasants gathered from meadows has earned its place in the modern pharmacopoeia. The plant's name comes from its traditional harvest time around the feast of St. John the Baptist in late June. Around the summer solstice, when days stretch longest and sunlight fills the northern lands with warmth that seems endless, St. John's wort bursts into golden bloom across meadows and roadsides. The timing aligned with the feast day of St. John the Baptist on the 24th of June, and medieval Christians saw divine significance in this correspondence between sacred calendar and natural flowering. They gathered the flowering tops at dawn, when dew still clung to the petals, believing the plant's powers were strongest at this liminal moment between night and day. The practice continues among herbalists today, who maintain that proper timing matters, that plants harvested at their peak contain more of the healing compounds. Whether the effect is chemical or psychological, the ritual connects modern gatherers to centuries of accumulated tradition. Valerian root has been used as a sedative and sleep aid since the time of ancient Rome. In gardens across the Roman Empire, valerian grew among the medicinal herbs that physicians relied upon to calm troubled minds and invite the blessed relief of sleep. The great physician Galen recommended it for insomnia and nervous conditions, and Dioscorides included it prominently in his Materia Medica as a remedy for nervousness and agitation. Through the Middle Ages and Renaissance, the plant maintained its well-earned reputation, appearing in herbals and apothecaries across Europe wherever healers practiced their art. During the World Wars, valerian was used to treat shell shock and combat stress when pharmaceutical supplies ran desperately short. The root that Roman physicians trusted 2,000 years ago remains available in any health food store, its calming properties acknowledged across cultures and centuries. Some remedies prove themselves through the simple test of time. The name valerian comes from the Latin valor, meaning to be strong or healthy, though the root itself smells rather unpleasant. There is a paradox in valerian's name, for while valor suggests vigor, wellness, and robust health, the root itself emits an odor that many find deeply off-putting, reminiscent of dirty socks or aged cheese left sitting far too long in the sun. This pungent aroma comes from volatile compounds called valorenic acids, and interestingly, these same compounds are responsible for much of the plant's sedative effect on the nervous system. Cats seem to find the smell strangely attractive, and valerian has sometimes been used as a lure by trappers and hunters seeking feline prey. Herbalists learn to look past the scent, knowing that the benefits far outweigh the momentary unpleasantness of preparation and handling. The plant that smells of strength ultimately delivers the precious gift of peaceful rest. Valerian interacts with GABA receptors in the brain in ways similar to benzodiazepines, but without the same risk of dependence. Modern neuroscience has begun to unravel how valerian produces its calming effects on the restless mind, and the mechanism bears striking similarity to prescription sedatives. The compounds in valerian root bind to GABA receptors, the same neural pathways that benzodiazepines target, enhancing the brain's natural inhibitory signals and promoting deep relaxation throughout the nervous system. Yet, unlike pharmaceutical sedatives with their well-documented risks, valerian appears to carry little risk of tolerance or dependence with normal use over extended periods. This gentler profile makes it attractive for those seeking natural sleep support without the serious concerns that accompany stronger medications. The ancient remedy works through surprisingly modern molecular mechanisms, a bridge between traditional herbalism and contemporary pharmacology. Chamomile has been called the star among medicinal species by herbalists for its versatility and safety. Among the thousands of herbs that humanity has employed for healing across cultures and centuries, chamomile stands out for its gentle reliability and remarkable range of applications. It calms upset stomachs, soothes irritated skin, eases anxiety, and promotes restful sleep, all without significant side effects or risk of toxicity, even in sensitive individuals. Ancient Egyptians dedicated it to Ra, the sun god, perhaps recognizing in its golden center the warmth that heals both body and spirit. Victorian nannies gave chamomile tea to fretful children, and modern hospitals offer it to patients struggling with anxiety before procedures. The daisy-like flowers that bloom in meadows across the northern hemisphere contain a pharmacy of healing compounds, delivered in a form so mild that even infants can benefit. In the world of medicinal plants, chamomile is the wise and gentle friend. And as these gentle facts about calming herbs drift through your mind, you might notice your own breathing slowing, your own body softening. These are facts to fall asleep to, remedies that have cradled countless generations into rest. Let your eyelids grow heavy if they wish. The flavonoid apignin in chamomile binds to the same brain receptors as anti-anxiety medications, producing a mild calming effect. Within the delicate white petals and golden centers of chamomile flowers lies a molecule that speaks directly to the anxious brain. Apignin, a flavonoid found in abundance in chamomile, binds to benzodiazepine receptors in the brain, the same targets that prescription anti-anxiety medications like Valium were designed to reach. This binding produces a mild calming effect without the sedation, confusion, or risk of dependence that accompanies pharmaceutical alternatives. Researchers have isolated apignin and tested it in laboratory studies, confirming what herbalists have observed for millennia. The flower that generations of grandmothers steeped into soothing teas operates through mechanisms that modern neuroscience is only beginning to fully understand. A cup of chamomile before bed delivers ancient wisdom in molecular form. Lavender has been used for relaxation and sleep since ancient Egyptian times, and its scent has been shown to reduce cortisol levels. The purple spires of lavender have perfumed bedchambers and bathhouses for over 3,000 years, their fragrance a signal to the body that it is time to rest. Ancient Egyptians included lavender in their embalming rituals, and Roman soldiers carried it in their packs for its calming and antiseptic properties. Modern studies have measured what ancient peoples already knew, that inhaling lavender reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that keeps minds racing and bodies tense. The scent activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety and allowing the body to shift from alert vigilance to peaceful relaxation. In hospices and hospitals, lavender essential oil has become a standard tool for easing patient anxiety. The flower that pharaohs treasured still guards the gates of sleep. The word lavender comes from the Latin lavare, meaning to wash, as Romans added it to their bath water for its soothing fragrance. In the great bathhouses of ancient Rome, where citizens gathered to cleanse both body and mind, attendants scattered fragrant lavender into the steaming waters. The herb's name preserves this practice, derived from lavare, the Latin word for washing, a reminder that cleanliness and calm have long been intertwined in human culture. Romans believed that lavender purified not only the skin but the spirit, washing away the anxieties and tensions of daily life in the empire. They carried this tradition across their conquered territories, planting lavender wherever legions settled and baths were built. Today, bath products still feature lavender as their signature scent, an unbroken thread connecting modern self-care to ancient ritual. The herb has been making bedtimes better for over 2,000 years. Studies have found that lavender aromatherapy can improve sleep quality in hospital patients and those with mild insomnia. In the sterile corridors of modern hospitals, where beeping monitors and fluorescent lights conspire against rest, lavender has emerged as an unexpectedly powerful ally in the quest for healing sleep. Clinical trials have demonstrated that patients exposed to lavender aromatherapy report better sleep quality, less anxiety, and improved overall well-being compared to control groups. The effects are particularly notable in cardiac care units and post-surgical recovery wards, where stress can impede healing and sleep proves elusive. Even in home settings, people with mild insomnia have found relief through lavender pillow sprays and diffusers. The evidence has grown strong enough that some hospitals now incorporate aromatherapy into standard care protocols. A flower's fragrance has become a legitimate medical intervention. Passion flower was used by indigenous peoples of the Americas long before Spanish missionaries gave it its symbolic name. In the forests and meadows of North and South America, indigenous healers had learned to brew the vines and leaves of a climbing plant into a soothing tea that calmed frayed nerves and invited sleep. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the 16th century, they saw in the flowers intricate structure symbols of Christ's passion, the corona like a crown of thorns, the stamens like wounds, the tendrils like whips. They named it passion flower and brought it back to Europe, where it quickly became a popular remedy for anxiety and insomnia among those who could afford exotic herbs. Today, passion flower extracts are sold in pharmacies worldwide, and clinical trials have confirmed that the plant can reduce anxiety as effectively as some prescription medications. The missionaries sought symbols but found medicine. And from the fragrant herbs that calm the mind, we journey into the deeper forest, where bark and resin hold ancient secrets. The bark of the slippery elm tree produces a mucilage that soothes sore throats and irritated digestive tracts. When the inner bark of the slippery elm is mixed with water, it transforms into a thick, slick gel that coats and protects irritated tissues throughout the body. This remarkable mucilage has been used for centuries to ease the raw pain of sore throats, to calm inflamed stomachs during illness, and to soothe the burning discomfort of heartburn and acid reflux. Native American tribes taught European settlers this simple remedy, and it became a staple of frontier medicine in an era before pharmacies dotted every corner. The coating action is purely physical, a protective barrier that allows healing to occur beneath without further irritation. Modern herbalists still reach for slippery elm when clients complain of throat or digestive discomfort. The tree that grows in quiet forests offers comfort to those in pain. Native Americans used slippery elm bark for wound healing, making poultices that kept injuries clean and moist. In an era before antiseptic creams and adhesive bandages, keeping wounds clean and properly moist could mean the difference between recovery and fatal infection. Native American healers discovered that slippery elm bark, pounded and moistened into a poultice, created an ideal environment for healing the body. The mucilage formed a protective barrier against dirt and bacteria while maintaining the moisture that tissues need to regenerate properly. This ancient wound care technique anticipated modern principles of moist wound healing by centuries, proving that careful observation can reveal truths that science later confirms. The knowledge was passed from generation to generation, refined through countless applications in forest camps and village healing lodges. Traditional wisdom held the seeds of medical innovation. White birch bark contains betulinic acid, a compound now being researched for its potential anti-cancer properties. The papery white bark that peels from birch trees in northern forests contains a compound that has captured the attention of cancer researchers around the world. Betulinic acid appears to trigger apoptosis, a form of programmed cell death, in certain types of cancer cells while leaving healthy cells relatively unharmed. This selectivity is the holy grail of cancer treatment, and scientists are working diligently to develop drugs based on this natural compound. Traditional healers in Russia and Scandinavia used birch bark preparations for various ailments, though they could not have known about the specific molecules responsible for its effects. The tree that symbolizes purity and new beginnings in many cultures may yet offer hope to those facing the most feared diagnoses. Research continues in laboratories around the world. Pine resin has been used across cultures to treat respiratory infections drawn into the lungs through steam or smoke. When the bark of a pine tree is cut or damaged, golden resin flows out to seal the wound, protecting the tree from infection and insects with its antimicrobial properties. Humans learn to harvest this resin and use it for similar purposes, inhaling the vapors from heated pine resin to clear congested lungs and fight respiratory infections that made breathing difficult. In saunas from Finland to Japan, pine branches have been beat against the body and their scent breathed in deep, combining the benefits of heat and herbal medicine in rituals that date back centuries. The volatile compounds in pine resin possess genuine antimicrobial properties, and modern research has identified several that show significant activity against respiratory pathogens. The crisp scent of pine forests does more than lift spirits. It may actually help lungs heal. Frankincense, a resin from the Boswellia tree, has been used for inflammation and arthritis in Ayurvedic medicine for over 3,000 years. In the dry, harsh lands of the Arabian Peninsula and East Africa, where the Boswellia tree clings to rocky hillsides, healers have collected its aromatic resin for millennia. Ayurvedic physicians learned that this precious substance, when taken internally, could ease the swelling and persistent pain of inflamed joints afflicted by arthritis. The resin was traded along ancient caravan routes, valued by kings and priests for its fragrance in religious ceremonies and its undeniable power in the healing arts. Modern scientists have isolated the boswellic acids responsible for this anti-inflammatory effect and found that they work through cellular pathways similar to some pharmaceutical drugs. A remedy from the deserts of antiquity has proven its worth in the laboratories of modernity. Modern research has confirmed anti-inflammatory effects from frankincense compounds that rival some pharmaceutical drugs. In laboratories around the world, scientists have subjected frankincense to the rigorous tests of modern pharmacology and found that its reputation is well deserved. The boswellic acids in frankincense inhibit the same inflammatory pathways that are targeted by some of the most commonly prescribed anti-inflammatory medications. In clinical trials, frankincense extracts have shown promising results for conditions ranging from osteoarthritis to inflammatory bowel disease. Some patients who could not tolerate pharmaceutical options have found relief through this ancient resin. The research is ongoing, with new applications being explored and mechanisms being refined, but the fundamental insight is clear. What Ayurvedic physicians knew intuitively, Western science has now confirmed through controlled studies and molecular analysis. Myrrh, often paired with frankincense, possesses antimicrobial properties that ancient Egyptians used in embalming. Among the treasures that traders carried along ancient routes, myrrh ranked alongside gold and precious gems, valued for its fragrance and its remarkable ability to prevent decay. Ancient Egyptian embalmers discovered that myrrh resin could preserve flesh, keeping bodies intact for the journey to the afterlife. Modern analysis has revealed that myrrh contains compounds that kill bacteria and fungi, explaining its effectiveness in preservation. The same antimicrobial properties made myrrh valuable as a wound treatment in an age before antibiotics, and healers throughout the ancient world applied it to injuries and infections. Today, myrrh still appears in some mouthwashes and dental products, its ancient uses adapted for modern hygiene. The resin of the Chamomile tree continues its long career of protection. And as we continue this sleepy science journey through the world's forests, we discover that some of the smallest leaves hold the greatest power. Hawthorn berries and leaves have been used in European folk medicine for centuries to support heart health. In the hedgerows and forests of Europe, where thorny hawthorn bushes bloom white in spring and bear red berries in autumn, country healers gathered a remedy for the weary heart. People suffering from heart weakness, irregular rhythms, and the breathlessness of cardiac insufficiency were given hawthorn preparations to ease their troubling symptoms. The tradition passed from generation to generation, from village-wise women to apothecaries, from herbals to modern supplements found in health food stores today. Scientists investigating these claims have found that hawthorn contains flavonoids and procyanidins that may improve blood flow to the heart muscle and strengthen its contractions. The bush that farmers once planted as hedging has earned respect as a gentle cardiac tonic, bridging folk wisdom and clinical evidence. Clinical studies have shown that hawthorn extracts can modestly improve symptoms in patients with mild heart failure. When researchers subjected hawthorn to randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of medical evidence, they found results worthy of careful attention. Patients with mild heart failure who took hawthorn supplements showed modest but meaningful improvements in exercise tolerance, reduced fatigue, and better overall quality of life compared to those taking placebo. The effects are not dramatic enough to replace pharmaceutical treatments for serious heart disease, but they offer an additional option for those seeking gentle support. In Germany, where herbal medicines are more integrated into mainstream medical practice, hawthorn extracts are approved for mild cardiac insufficiency. The humble hedge plant has earned a place in evidence-based medicine, its centuries of folk use finally validated by science. Elderberry has been used since ancient times to fight colds and flu, and modern research supports its antiviral properties. The dark purple berries of the elder tree have been a fixture in European folk medicine for longer than any written record can trace, passed from generation to generation. Grandmothers made elderberry syrup and wine to ward off winter illnesses, and the tradition persisted through centuries because people observed that it actually worked. Modern virology has begun to explain why, showing that compounds in elderberry can inhibit the replication of influenza viruses and reduce the duration and severity of symptoms. The flavonoids in elderberry appear to bind to viral proteins and prevent the virus from entering and infecting cells. What was once dismissed as superstition has gained the respect of research laboratories around the world. The elder tree guards its human neighbors against the viruses of winter. During the Great Influenza Pandemic of 1918, elderberry syrup was one of the few remedies that seemed to help. As the deadliest pandemic in modern history swept across the globe, killing tens of millions and overwhelming hospitals and medical personnel, desperate families turned to whatever remedies they could find. Among the treatments that seemed to offer some relief, elderberry syrup stood out, easing symptoms and perhaps shortening the course of illness in some patients who took it faithfully. While the evidence from that chaotic time remains anecdotal, it aligned with centuries of traditional use and has been partially supported by later research. The pandemic revealed the limits of early 20th century medicine and reminded people that old remedies sometimes held valuable knowledge. In the face of catastrophe, the elder tree offered what comfort it could, as it had for countless generations before. The elder tree was considered so sacred by some European cultures that woodcutters would ask the tree's permission before harvesting. In the folklore of Northern Europe, the elder tree was home to a protective spirit, sometimes called the Elder Mother, who guarded the tree and all who respected it properly. Before cutting any elder wood, woodcutters would remove their hats, kneel, and ask the tree's blessing, believing that failure to show proper respect would bring bad luck or illness upon themselves and their families. This reverence reflected the elder's importance as a source of food and medicine, but also something deeper, an acknowledgement that the natural world deserved gratitude and care in exchange for its gifts. The tradition has largely faded, but echoes remain in rural communities where old customs die slowly. Perhaps this ancient courtesy was not mere superstition, but wisdom about reciprocity with nature. Nettle leaves, despite their stinging defense, are rich in iron and have been used to treat anemia and fatigue. Anyone who has brushed against a nettle plant knows its sting, a burning sensation caused by tiny hairs that inject formic acid into the skin upon the slightest contact. Yet this formidable defense protects a plant of remarkable nutritional and medicinal value that has nourished humanity for thousands of years. Nettle leaves contain high levels of iron, vitamins, and minerals, making them a traditional remedy for anemia and the exhaustion that accompanies it. Herbalists prescribed nettle tea for those who felt weak and pale, particularly women after childbirth or during heavy menstruation when iron stores ran low. The leaves must be cooked or dried to neutralize the sting, after which they become gentle nourishment. The plant that defends itself so fiercely gives generously to those who know how to prepare it properly. Roman soldiers reportedly whipped themselves with nettles to stay warm during cold campaigns in Britain. When Roman legions marched into the cold, damp lands of Britain, they encountered winters far harsher than those of the Mediterranean homeland they had left behind. According to historical accounts, some soldiers brought nettle seeds and planted them wherever they camped, using the stinging plants to stimulate circulation and generate warmth during the bitter nights away from hearth and fire. The practice, called urtication, creates an intense burning sensation, followed by increased blood flow to the skin and muscles as the body reacts to the irritation. Whether the stories are literally true or embellished by later writers, they reflect a genuine understanding that nettles can stimulate the body in ways that traditional cultures exploited for therapeutic purposes. The sting became a tool for survival in hostile climates. Dandelion, often despised as a weed, was once a prized medicinal plant used to support liver and kidney function. The yellow flowers that homeowners battle each spring were once deliberately cultivated and carefully harvested for their medicinal properties by wise herbalists and healers alike. Every part of the dandelion, from root to flower, has been used in traditional medicine across Europe, Asia, and the Americas for centuries. Herbalists valued the root as a gentle liver tonic, believing it helped the organ cleanse the blood and process toxins that accumulated in the body. The leaves, with their mild diuretic effect, supported kidney function and were used for conditions involving uncomfortable fluid retention. The bitter compounds in dandelion stimulate digestion and appetite, earning it a place in spring tonics meant to rejuvenate the body after winter. This resilient plant offers healing that most people mow away. And from the common plants of gardens and roadsides, we travel now to the healing traditions of distant continents in this sleepy science exploration. Ayurveda, the traditional medicine of India, recognizes over 2,000 plant species used in healing formulas. Over 5,000 years ago, in the river valleys of the Indian subcontinent, healers began compiling the observations that would become Ayurveda, one of the world's oldest and most comprehensive systems of traditional medicine. This vast body of knowledge, recorded in Sanskrit texts and passed from teacher to student through countless generations, documents over 2,000 plant species used in various healing formulas. Ayurveda views each person as a unique constitution requiring individualized treatment, and plants are chosen not merely for their chemical actions, but for their ability to restore harmony between body, mind, and spirit. The system continues to thrive in modern India, where millions consult Ayurvedic practitioners alongside or instead of Western doctors. Ancient wisdom serves modern healers. Ashwagandha, sometimes called Indian ginseng, has been used for over 3,000 years as a rejuvenating tonic. Among the thousands of plants in the Ayurvedic pharmacopoeia, ashwagandha holds a place of special honor as a ras yana, a rejuvenating herb that promotes longevity, vitality, and overall wellness. For over 3 millennia, Indian healers have prescribed ashwagandha to those weakened by illness, stressed by life's many demands, or simply aged by the passage of time. The root is believed to confer the strength and vigor of a horse, making it a favorite among those seeking to restore depleted reserves. Modern research has begun to confirm some traditional claims, showing that ashwagandha can reduce cortisol levels, improve sleep quality, and support immune function. The ancient tonic has become one of the best-selling herbal supplements in the Western world today. Old wisdom finds new and increasingly eager audiences. The name ashwagandha means smell of horse in Sanskrit, reflecting both its odor and its traditional use for conferring strength. When the roots of the ashwagandha plant are dried and ground, they release an earthy, somewhat pungent aroma that reminded ancient observers of a horse standing in its stable. The Sanskrit name combines ashwa, meaning horse, with gandha, meaning smell, but the association goes deeper than mere scent alone. Horses represented power, stamina, and vital energy in Vedic culture, and ashwagandha was believed to bestow these qualities upon those who consumed it regularly. Athletes, warriors, and exhausted laborers all turned to this herb when they needed to restore their strength and endurance. The tradition persists today, with ashwagandha marketed as an adaptogen that helps modern people cope with the demands of contemporary life. The horse still lends its name and its power to a healing root. Turmeric root has been a staple of Ayurvedic medicine for inflammation, and its active compound curcumin is now widely researched. The golden root that colors curries across South Asia has been far more than a spice for the cultures that have used it for millennia. Ayurvedic physicians prescribe turmeric for wounds, digestive complaints, respiratory infections, and joint pain, recognizing its broad anti-inflammatory effects long before the concept of inflammation was understood. Modern scientists have isolated curcumin, the compound responsible for turmeric's distinctive color, and subjected it to thousands of studies examining its effects on everything from arthritis to cancer. While absorption remains a challenge, the research suggests genuine therapeutic potential. In laboratories and test tubes, curcumin has demonstrated antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and even anti-cancer properties. The golden spice has earned the attention of the scientific world. Holy basil, or tulsi, is considered sacred in Hindu tradition and is believed to reduce stress and balance the body. In courtyards and temple gardens across India, the tulsi plant is grown not merely for medicine, but for worship, its purple-tinged leaves considered sacred to the god Vishnu and revered as truly divine. Hindu families tend tulsi with devotional care, lighting lamps beside it and offering daily prayers, believing the plant purifies the environment and protects the household from harm. Beyond its spiritual significance, tulsi has served as a versatile medicine for respiratory infections, digestive troubles, and the effects of stress. Modern research has classified it as an adaptogen, a substance that helps the body resist various stressors and maintain equilibrium. The sacred plant that Hindu families revere has begun to appear in Western health food stores. Faith and pharmacology need not be separate paths. And as you drift deeper into rest, let these ancient remedies from across the world remind you that healing is not only modern science but timeless wisdom. These facts for sleep carry thousands of years of knowledge that asks nothing of you but to receive it softly. Let go of the waking world for now. Traditional Chinese medicine views plants not as treatments for specific diseases, but as tools to restore balance within the body. Where Western medicine often asks what germ or malfunction causes a symptom, traditional Chinese medicine asks how the body's vital energies have fallen out of harmony with each other and with the natural world. Illness is seen not as an invasion to be repelled, but as an imbalance to be corrected, and plants are chosen for their ability to warm or cool, to move energy or calm it, to nourish specific organs or drain harmful excesses. This approach may sound mystical to modern ears, but it reflects a sophisticated understanding of the body as an integrated system where everything connects deeply. Chinese herbalists spend years learning to read the subtle signs of imbalance and to match patients with the herbs that will restore equilibrium. Balance rather than attack defines the healing strategy. Chinese herbalism often combines multiple plants in formulas, believing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Unlike Western herbalism, which often uses single plants for specific conditions, traditional Chinese medicine typically prescribes formulas containing 5, 10, or even more different herbs working together in carefully calibrated harmony. Each ingredient plays a specific role, some serving as the primary therapeutic agent, others supporting, directing, or moderating the main herb's effects on the body. The formulas have been refined over centuries of clinical observation, with successful combinations passed down and modified as practitioners gained experience. This approach anticipates modern concepts of synergy, where combinations of compounds can produce effects that none could achieve alone. A single plant is a remedy, but a well-crafted formula is an orchestra playing together in harmony. Astragalus root has been used in Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years to strengthen the immune system. In the traditional herbal pharmacies of China, astragalus root is classified as a qi tonic, believed to strengthen the body's vital energy and fortify its natural defenses against illness and disease. For over 2 millennia, Chinese physicians have prescribed it for those weakened by chronic disease, recovering from illness, or simply hoping to maintain robust health through the challenging seasons of the year. Modern immunology has found support for these traditional claims, showing that astragalus can stimulate various components of the immune system, including white blood cells and the production of protective antibodies. The root is now commonly used as a supplement during cold and flu season, even in countries far from its Asian homeland. Ancient immune support finds its place in the modern wellness aisle. Schisandra, the 5-flavor berry, is believed to benefit all 5 yin organs in traditional Chinese medicine. According to the ancient texts, Schisandra berries contain all 5 fundamental flavors: sour, sweet, salty, bitter, and pungent, each corresponding to one of the 5 yin organs in traditional Chinese medicine. This remarkable combination supposedly allows Schisandra to benefit the liver, heart, spleen, lungs, and kidneys simultaneously, making it a supremely versatile tonic for the whole body and spirit. Practitioners have used it for centuries to calm the spirit, sharpen the mind, and protect the body from the effects of stress and fatigue. Modern research has identified compounds in Schisandra that appear to have adaptogenic and liver protective properties. The berry that tastes of everything may indeed offer something for every organ system. 5 flavors, 5 organs, 1 ancient and remarkable remedy. Drowsy mushroom, called the mushroom of immortality, grows on forest trees and has been revered for its supposed life-extending properties. In the damp forests of Asia, where ancient trees host communities of fungi, the Drowsy mushroom grows on bark and fallen logs, its reddish-brown cap gleaming like lacquered wood in the filtered light. For over 2,000 years, Chinese emperors and Taoist sages sought this rare fungus, believing it could extend life, enhance wisdom, and bring spiritual enlightenment to those who found it. The mushroom was so prized that it appeared in art, poetry, and folklore as a symbol of longevity and good fortune. Modern research has revealed that Drowsy contains compounds that may modulate the immune system, reduce inflammation, and support cardiovascular health. Whether it truly grants immortality remains unproven, but the mushroom of immortality continues to fascinate researchers and consumers alike. And from the misty forests of Asia, we travel now to the savannas and jungles of Africa, where healers have guarded botanical secrets for countless generations. African traditional medicine relies heavily on forest and savanna plants, with knowledge passed orally from healer to apprentice. Across the vast landscapes of Africa, from dense equatorial rainforests to open grasslands, traditional healers have developed sophisticated systems of plant medicine over countless generations. This knowledge is rarely written down, passed instead through careful apprenticeship, where young learners spend years memorizing plant names, preparation methods, and the rituals that accompany healing. Each region has its specialists, from herbalists who treat common ailments to diviners who use plants in spiritual practices. Colonial administrators often dismissed these traditions as superstition, but many African healing practices have proven remarkably effective when subjected to scientific study. The oral libraries held by traditional healers represent a precious repository of empirical wisdom. Each generation learns from the last. The African potato has been used to support immune function and is now being studied for its potential benefits during HIV treatment. Despite its common name, the African potato is not related to the familiar tuber of European cuisine, but is rather the underground corm of Hypoxis hemerocalidea, a plant with cheerful yellow flowers that dot the South African grasslands. For generations, traditional healers have used it as a general tonic, believing it strengthens the body against illness and helps patients recover from weakness. When the HIV epidemic swept through southern Africa, many patients turned to the African potato as a traditional remedy, prompting researchers to investigate whether the plant truly affects immune function. Studies have shown that compounds in the corm may indeed have immunomodulatory properties, though more research is needed to understand exactly how they work. The yellow-flowered plant continues to bridge tradition and science. Devil's claw, native to the Kalahari Desert, is used for pain and inflammation and has become one of Africa's most exported medicinal plants. In the harsh, sun-baked fringes of the Kalahari Desert, where few plants manage to survive, the devil's claw produces sprawling stems and roots that sand hunters have long used to treat pain and digestive complaints. The plant earns its sinister name from the hooked spines on its fruit, which snag onto the hooves of passing animals, spreading seeds across the sandy soil. Traditional healers prepare the root as a bitter tea, prescribed for arthritis, back pain, and fever, and modern research has found evidence of anti-inflammatory compounds that may explain these effects. Devil's claw has become so popular in Europe that overharvesting now threatens wild populations. Sustainable cultivation programs now attempt to meet global demand while protecting natural habitats. The desert plant finds markets far from its sandy home. Rooibos, the red bush of South Africa, is now enjoyed worldwide as a caffeine-free tea rich in antioxidants. Only in the Cederberg Mountains of South Africa, where winter rains give way to dry summers, does the rooibos plant grow naturally, its needle-like leaves turning from green to deep red when dried and fermented in the traditional manner. Indigenous Khoisan peoples first discovered that these leaves could be brewed into a refreshing, slightly sweet beverage, and European settlers later adopted the practice, eventually developing rooibos into a commercial crop. Unlike true tea, rooibos contains no caffeine, making it suitable for evening drinking, and it is naturally low in tannins, so it never becomes bitter even when steeped for long periods. Modern research has revealed that rooibos is rich in antioxidant compounds, including some found nowhere else in the plant kingdom. The humble bush of the Cape Mountains now warms teacups around the world. Butchu leaves have been used by the Khoisan people for centuries to treat urinary infections and digestive complaints. Long before European ships arrived at the Cape of Good Hope, the Khoisan people of southern Africa knew the aromatic butchu plant as a versatile medicine, using its small, oil-rich leaves to treat bladder infections, stomach troubles, and a variety of other ailments. They would chew the leaves, brew them into teas, or mix them with animal fat to create healing ointments that could be applied to the skin. Dutch settlers quickly recognized the plant's value, and butchu became one of the first South African botanicals to be exported to Europe, where it gained a reputation for treating urinary tract problems. The essential oils in butchu leaves contain compounds with antimicrobial properties, lending scientific support to traditional applications. The indigenous medicine of the Cape has spread far beyond its homeland. And as this documentary for Sleep continues its journey through healing forests, we return to consider why so much botanical knowledge is now at risk. As tropical forests are cleared at alarming rates, countless medicinal plants are being lost before they can even be studied. Every hour, somewhere in the tropics, another patch of ancient forest falls to chainsaws and fire, and with it vanish plants that might have contained the cure for diseases that still cause immense suffering around the world. Scientists estimate that tens of thousands of plant species remain undescribed by Western science, their chemical secrets unknown, their healing potential untapped and unexplored. Many of these species exist only in small, restricted habitats, and when those habitats are destroyed, the plants disappear forever, taking their medicinal compounds with them. The loss is not merely botanical but medical, as each extinction forecloses possibilities that can never be recovered. The pharmacy of the forest shrinks with every acre cleared. Silent extinctions steal our future medicines. It is estimated that 1/4 of all prescription drugs contain compounds derived from or inspired by plants. When you visit a pharmacy and collect your prescription, there is a good chance that the medicine you receive owes something to the green-growing world, either containing plant compounds directly or featuring molecules that chemists designed after studying natural products. From morphine in painkillers to digoxin that steadies irregular heartbeats, from anti-cancer drugs like vincristine to antimalarials like quinine, plants have provided templates for some of our most essential medicines. Pharmaceutical companies once employed botanists to collect samples from remote forests, hoping to find the next wonder drug hidden in an unassuming leaf or bark. Modern drug discovery increasingly relies on synthetic chemistry, but plants remain an irreplaceable source of structural inspiration. The forest remains the ultimate pharmacy. Yet fewer than 15% of flowering plant species have been systematically investigated for medicinal potential. Despite centuries of botanical research and pharmaceutical exploration, the vast majority of the world's flowering plants remain essentially unknown to modern medicine, their chemical contents unanalyzed, their healing properties untested by rigorous methods. There are perhaps 300,000 species of flowering plants on Earth, and fewer than 50,000 have been studied with any thoroughness, leaving an enormous library of potential medicines completely unread. The sheer scale of botanical diversity overwhelms the resources available for systematic investigation, particularly as funding for natural products research has declined. Meanwhile, traditional healers in remote villages continue to use thousands of plants that Western science has never examined. The opportunity is as vast as the challenge. Most of the green world awaits discovery. With every elder who passes without sharing their knowledge, an irreplaceable library of healing wisdom is lost forever. In villages around the world, elderly healers carry in their memories the botanical knowledge accumulated over generations, the plant names, the preparation methods, the subtle indicators of quality, and the rituals that accompany proper use. When these elders pass away without transmitting their knowledge to younger generations, entire categories of healing wisdom simply vanish, as irretrievably lost as a burned library. Young people increasingly move to cities, adopt modern lifestyles, and show little interest in learning the old traditions that their grandparents spent lifetimes mastering. The loss accelerates with every passing year as the last speakers of indigenous languages die, taking with them vocabularies that contain encoded botanical information. Libraries of living knowledge close their doors forever. Each departure diminishes all of us. Ethnobotanists race against time to document traditional plant knowledge before languages and cultures fade away. Armed with notebooks, audio recorders, and pressed plant specimens, ethnobotanists travel to remote communities around the world, working alongside indigenous healers to document medicinal plant use before it is lost. The work requires patience, cultural sensitivity, and linguistic skill, as researchers must build trust with communities that have reason to be wary of outsiders seeking to exploit their knowledge. They record plant names in local languages, photograph preparation techniques, and collect voucher specimens for herbaria. The resulting databases preserve knowledge that would otherwise vanish, making it available for both cultural preservation and potential scientific study. The race between documentation and extinction grows ever more urgent. Time favors neither the plants nor those who understand them. The Nagoya Protocol now requires that benefits from discovering new medicines be shared with the indigenous communities who first found them. For decades, pharmaceutical companies and researchers collected plants from traditional communities, learned their healing uses, and then developed profitable medicines without sharing any benefits with the people whose knowledge made the discovery possible. The Nagoya Protocol, adopted in 2010, aims to change this pattern by requiring that access to genetic resources be accompanied by fair benefit-sharing agreements. When a company now wishes to study plants used by indigenous healers, it must negotiate terms that ensure some portion of any resulting profits returns to the community. The protocol represents a significant shift toward recognizing traditional knowledge as intellectual property deserving protection and compensation. Justice slowly arrives in the world of botanical medicine. Ancient wisdom finally receives recognition. Biopiracy, the theft of traditional knowledge without compensation, has led to growing distrust between indigenous peoples and researchers. The history of ethnobotany contains uncomfortable chapters in which Western researchers extracted valuable knowledge from traditional communities and then claimed credit and profit for themselves alone. Patents have been granted for uses of plants that indigenous peoples documented centuries before any scientist arrived, and communities have watched as their medicinal heritage was commercialized without their consent or benefit. This pattern, now commonly called biopiracy, has understandably made many traditional healers reluctant to share their knowledge with outsiders. Researchers today often face suspicion and closed doors, the legacy of past exploitation creating barriers to collaboration. Rebuilding trust requires not just legal frameworks, but genuine partnership and respect. The wounds of biopiracy heal slowly. And from these sobering realities, we turn to the quiet hope that still blooms beneath the forest canopy, perfect science to fall asleep to a mid-deep sleep. Community seed banks and botanical gardens are working to preserve rare medicinal plants before they disappear entirely. Around the world, dedicated botanists and community activists are racing to collect and preserve the seeds, cuttings, and living specimens of medicinal plants that face extinction in their natural habitats. Community seed banks allow local people to maintain their traditional varieties, while major botanical gardens like Kew and the New York Botanical Garden cultivate rare species in protected environments where they cannot be lost to development. These living libraries of plant diversity represent insurance against extinction, holding genetic material that might one day prove invaluable for medicine or agriculture. The work is painstaking and often underfunded, but those who carry it out understand that every preserved species is a victory against forgetting. Gardens become arks for botanical treasures. Each seed holds tomorrow's potential. Some pharmaceutical companies have begun partnering ethically with traditional healers, sharing both credit and profits. Not all interactions between modern medicine and traditional knowledge follow the exploitative patterns of the past, as some companies and researchers have pioneered truly ethical partnerships with indigenous communities. These arrangements ensure that traditional healers receive credit for their knowledge, share in any profits that result from commercialization, and maintain control over how their cultural heritage is used. Such partnerships take more time and effort to establish than simply extracting information, but they build trust that enables deeper collaboration and access to knowledge that communities would otherwise protect. The model demonstrates that scientific progress and social justice need not be in conflict. Ethical commerce can honor traditional wisdom. Fairness and discovery walk together. New technologies allow scientists to screen thousands of plant compounds rapidly, accelerating the search for new medicines. Where early ethnobotanists could only study a handful of plants during a career, modern laboratories can now analyze thousands of compounds in a matter of weeks, using automated systems that test each substance against dozens of disease targets simultaneously. High-throughput screening, combined with advanced analytical chemistry and computational modeling, has transformed the pace at which plant medicines can be investigated. Databases of traditional plant use help researchers prioritize their efforts, directing the screening machinery towards species with the highest likelihood of yielding useful compounds. The marriage of ancient knowledge and modern technology creates unprecedented opportunities for discovery. Machines accelerate what tradition began to explore. Speed and wisdom combine their strengths. DNA barcoding helps identify medicinal plants accurately, preventing dangerous substitutions and protecting quality. When medicinal plants are harvested and sold, there is always a risk that the wrong species will be substituted, whether through honest mistake or deliberate fraud. DNA barcoding, a technique that identifies species by analyzing short standardized gene sequences, now allows regulators and researchers to verify the identity of plant materials with remarkable precision. A small sample can be tested to confirm that the herb in a supplement is truly what the label claims, protecting consumers from ineffective or even dangerous substitutions. The technology has already revealed widespread adulteration in the herbal products market, prompting better quality standards and much stricter enforcement. Science guards the quality of traditional medicines. Every barcode tells an honest truth about a plant's identity. The concept of forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku, suggests that simply being among trees produces measurable health benefits. In Japan, the practice of Shinrin-yoku, which translates as forest bathing, has been promoted since the 1980s as a form of preventive medicine, encouraging people to spend time walking slowly through woodland environments. The idea is not exercise in the traditional sense, but rather a calm immersion in the forest atmosphere, breathing the air, listening to the sounds, and allowing the senses to drink in the green surroundings. Japanese researchers have measured significant health benefits from these gentle walks, including reduced stress hormones, lower blood pressure, and enhanced immune function. The forest offers healing not just through its individual plants, but through its presence as an environment. Trees heal merely by being nearby. The forest itself becomes a gentle medicine. Research shows that volatile compounds released by trees can lower cortisol, reduce blood pressure, and boost immune function. The air in a healthy forest is not merely fresh but medically active, filled with volatile organic compounds called phytoncides that trees release to protect themselves from insects and pathogens. When humans breathe these compounds, studies have shown measurable effects on physiology, including reduced levels of the stress hormone cortisol, lower blood pressure, and increased activity of natural killer cells that help the immune system fight infection. The benefits appear to last for days after leaving the forest, suggesting that occasional woodland visits could contribute meaningfully to long-term health. The healing power of forest air was intuitively understood by traditional cultures who built retreats in woodland settings. Science confirms what forest dwellers have always sensed: the breath of trees heals those who walk among them. Perhaps the forest heals not only through its individual plants, but through its presence as a whole living system. When we walk among trees, we enter a complex web of relationships between plants, fungi, insects, birds, and countless microorganisms, all interacting in ways that science is only beginning to understand. The forest is not merely a collection of useful species, but an integrated system whose health depends on the connections between its parts, and perhaps human health benefits from participating in that web rather than simply extracting individual components from it. Traditional healers often recognize this, prescribing time in nature as medicine and viewing the forest as an ally rather than a resource to be exploited. The modern separation between medicine and ecosystem may have obscured something important about how healing really works. Wholeness heals in remarkable ways that isolated fragments cannot. The scent of petrichor, the earthy smell after rain in a forest, triggers positive emotional responses deeply rooted in human evolution. When rain falls on dry forest soil, it releases a distinctive earthy fragrance that scientists have named petrichor, from the Greek words for stone and the fluid that flows in the veins of gods. This scent, caused by compounds released by soil bacteria and plant oils, produces remarkably consistent positive responses in humans, evoking deep feelings of calm, nostalgia, and lasting well-being. Evolutionary psychologists suggest that our ancestors learned to associate this smell with the relief of drought and the promise of renewed growth, embedding a profound emotional response in our very neural circuits. The forest after rain speaks to something ancient within us, a memory older than language. The gods flow through the wet earth. Our bodies remember what our conscious minds have long forgotten. And as you rest now, deeply and peacefully, remember that you are part of a species that has always turned to the green world for comfort. These bedtime stories of healing plants are your inheritance too, a gentle science that asks only that you receive its gifts. Let sleep find you now, naturally and easily. Herbalists often speak of the doctrine of signatures, an old belief that a plant's appearance indicates its medicinal use. Long before microscopes revealed the chemical composition of plants, healers searched for clues in outward appearance, believing that a benevolent creator had marked each plant with signs indicating its proper use. A walnut, with its wrinkled surface resembling a brain, was prescribed for mental ailments, while the spotted leaves of lungwort suggested its application for respiratory complaints. The heart-shaped leaves of certain plants were used to treat cardiac conditions, and roots resembling human figures were believed to hold special power over the whole body. This doctrine guided herbalism for centuries, offering logic that made the overwhelming diversity of the plant kingdom easier to navigate. Whether these correspondences arose from insight or wishful thinking, they remain a fascinating window into how our ancestors sought meaning. While scientifically unfounded, this doctrine reveals how deeply humans have sought meaning and connection in the plant world. Modern pharmacology has found no consistent relationship between a plant's appearance and its medicinal properties, and the doctrine of signatures is now regarded as a historical curiosity rather than a reliable guide to treatment. Yet the impulse behind it tells us something important about human nature, our deep desire to find patterns and meaning in the natural world, to believe that the universe is designed with our well-being in mind. Perhaps the doctrine succeeded not because it was scientifically accurate, but because it encouraged people to pay close attention to plants, to study their forms and properties with care and dedication. That attention itself may have been the real medicine, the true path to understanding the green world. The search for signatures was also a search for belonging, a way to feel at home in nature. Many modern gardeners report that tending plants reduces anxiety and improves mood, a form of natural medicine without a formula. You need not understand the chemical constituents of plants to benefit from their presence in your life, as the simple act of tending a garden can bring measurable improvements to mental health and overall well-being. Researchers have found that gardening reduces cortisol levels, eases symptoms of depression and anxiety, and provides a sense of purpose and accomplishment that many people lack in their daily routines. The rhythms of planting, watering, and harvesting connect gardeners to natural cycles, offering a counterbalance to the often frantic pace of modern existence. There is something deeply satisfying about nurturing a living thing and watching it grow, a satisfaction that no screen or device can provide. Gardens heal their tenders as surely as any herb, offering peace to those who tend them with care. Horticultural therapy programs now use plant care to help patients recovering from trauma, addiction, and mental illness. In hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and mental health facilities around the world, trained therapists now use gardening as a treatment tool, guiding patients through the process of planting and tending as a way to rebuild damaged lives. Veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress find peace in the quiet routine of caring for plants, while those recovering from addiction discover new purpose in watching seeds germinate and grow. The non-judgmental nature of plants makes them ideal partners in healing, asking nothing but water and light while offering beauty and growth in return. Horticultural therapy programs have shown remarkable success in populations that struggle with traditional talk-based therapies. The garden becomes a safe space where healing unfolds. Plants teach patience to those who have forgotten it. And as we approach the end of this quiet journey through ethnobotany, we discover that the forest has one more gift to offer. The relationship between plants and humans is not one of extraction, but of exchange, an ancient partnership still unfolding. When we tend gardens, cultivate medicinal herbs, and protect wild forests, we participate in a relationship that has shaped both our species and the plants we depend upon over countless generations. Humans have spread useful plants around the globe, given them protection from pests and competition, and guided their evolution through selective breeding over thousands of years, creating varieties that would never have existed naturally. In return, plants have fed us, healed us, sheltered us, and filled our lives with beauty that enriches every corner of our existence. This is not exploitation, but partnership, a dance of mutual benefit that has continued since our earliest ancestors first began to tend wild gardens. The plants need us as we need them. Two kingdoms grow together, forever intertwined. When you drink a cup of peppermint tea or smell a sprig of rosemary, you participate in a ritual as old as our species. The simple act of brewing a herbal tea connects you to an unbroken chain of humans who have turned to plants for comfort, medicine, and pleasure since before written history began its first recordings. Your ancestors gathered wild mint beside streams, dried chamomile flowers in the warm sun, and steeped fragrant herbs in hot water to ease their troubles and soothe their spirits when the world grew heavy. When you raise a cup of herbal tea to your lips, you perform the same ancient ritual, using the same plants, seeking the same gentle comfort that humans have always sought. The practice requires no special knowledge or equipment, only the willingness to receive what the plant world offers freely. Ancient wisdom waits in your kitchen cupboard. Each sip honors those who came before us and prepared the way. Every garden herb, every forest tree, every flowering plant is a thread connecting you to healers who lived thousands of years ago. The lavender in your garden was tended by Roman physicians who used it to cleanse wounds and calm troubled minds, while the sage on your windowsill descends from plants that medieval monks cultivated in monastery gardens with devoted care. When you grow basil, you grow a herb that Indian families have revered for countless generations as sacred and protective, a plant that carries blessings wherever it takes root. These plants carry history within their cells, their genetic codes shaped by centuries of human selection and care, each generation choosing the finest specimens to pass on. To plant a seed is to extend a thread that stretches back through time, connecting your hands to those of healers you will never meet but whose work you continue. The garden is a living memory. We tend what our ancestors loved and honored. The compounds that plants produce to survive have become the compounds we use to heal, a reminder of how deeply our fates are intertwined. Plants synthesize chemical compounds to protect themselves from insects, to heal their own wounds, to attract pollinators, and to discourage grazing animals from consuming them. Yet these same compounds, produced for the plant's own purposes of survival and reproduction, often prove beneficial to human health, easing our pain, fighting our infections, and calming our anxious minds when peace is hard to find. This happy coincidence, if coincidence it is, suggests that life on Earth shares deeper connections than we usually recognize in our daily existence. The molecules that defend a willow tree also soothe our headaches, and the compounds that protect a poppy seed become the opiates that ease our suffering in times of need. Our chemistry interweaves. We are more alike than we often appear. Perhaps the greatest medicine the forest offers is not any single compound, but the knowledge that we belong to a larger web of life. In an age when many feel disconnected from nature, alienated from the living world that sustained our ancestors through countless generations, ethnobotany offers a path back into relationship with the green growing earth. Learning about medicinal plants reminds us that we are not separate from nature, but embedded deeply within it, dependent on processes and cycles that continue with or without our awareness of them. This knowledge itself can be profoundly healing, restoring a sense of connection and meaning that modern life tends to erode with its screens and distractions. When we understand that every breath we take depends on photosynthesis, belonging becomes a biological fact rather than a sentimental notion. The forest teaches us who we actually are. Trees remind us that we belong here. And so, as you drift into sleep tonight, you carry with you the quiet wisdom of countless generations who looked to the green world for comfort. The stories we have shared tonight are your inheritance, part of a tradition of healing knowledge that belongs to all humanity and crosses every border ever drawn. From the earliest humans who learned which plants could ease their pain to the researchers who now analyze ancient remedies with modern tools, people have always sought the forest's medicine when illness troubled them. You need not be an expert to benefit from this wisdom, for its simplest lessons are also its most profound and lasting. Slow down, pay attention to the natural world around you, breathe deeply among trees, and trust that the green growing earth has gifts to offer you whenever you seek them. Sleep now, peacefully and deeply, carried by ancient wisdom. The forest watches over all those who honor it with gratitude. And now the gentle world of ethnobotany begins to fade softly into the stillness of the night. In this sleep documentary, we have wandered through ancient forests and modern laboratories, from the willow groves where aspirin was born to the tropical jungles that harbor cures we have not yet discovered, from the hearth fires of traditional healers to the sterile benches where their wisdom is finally being understood. These facts to fall asleep to remind us that healing is not only chemistry but relationship, not only molecules but memory, not only science but the accumulated patience of countless generations who trusted the green world to help them rest, recover, and return to strength again. In this sleepy science journey, we have seen how deeply humanity's fate is woven with the plants that surround us. If this gentle journey through forest medicine has brought you peace, consider subscribing so that we might continue exploring together, one sleepy soul at a time. There are more wonders waiting in the quiet corners of nature and science, more facts for sleep, more bedtime stories written in leaves and roots and bark. Perhaps next time we will wander through a different landscape and discover new reasons to marvel at the world. Right now, as you lie here, the plants outside your window are quietly photosynthesizing in the darkness, storing energy for tomorrow, exchanging gases with the night air. Somewhere, a forest is exhaling oxygen that will eventually reach your lungs. The connection between you and the green world does not pause because you sleep. It continues, as it always has, since the first human ancestor rested beneath heaven's canopy. If your eyes feel heavy, let them close. Let your breathing become slow and easy, like the steady growth of roots beneath forest soil. Feel your limbs grow soft and warm, as though you were settling into a bed of moss in some ancient wood. There is nothing left to do tonight. The plants will continue their work without you. The herbs will keep their secrets for another day. For now, just rest. Tonight, as you sleep, the forests of the world continue their quiet labor. Leaves filter moonlight, roots exchange nutrients with fungal networks, seeds wait in patient darkness for spring. You are a small, warm presence within this vast green world, a fellow traveler in the long story of life on Earth, peacefully resting among the wonders that have healed humanity for countless generations. Sleep well, sweet dreams. And may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that the plants have always been here, offering their gifts freely, asking nothing in return but a little rain and a little light and a little time to grow. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.